We have non-stop shops.
I'll call to order the Planning Commission regular meeting for May 16, 2024. I will ask for a roll call.
Anderson.
Here.
Patrick.
Here.
Broker.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Gaunt.
Here.
Lachey.
Here.
And Mans.
Here. Great. Well, I want to welcome you all, and for anybody who's in here or in the room, no, I'm not foolish enough to let myself get totally sunburned. I am going through some, they call it like a chemo screen for some like superficial face cancers over the next month or two. So I'm looking very red because the first one was just yesterday. So I'm not embarrassed by anything or anything like that. And then I also want to thank Ann for last month's meetings and taking care of that, which we'll get to in the agenda or in the minutes here from. So next we got everyone's got the agenda either in front of them. Any changes to our agenda or modifications? If not, do we have a motion to approve? So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, it's approved. In the packet that was online was the minutes from last month's meeting. This is what I was supposed to say. Thank you, Ann, for doing a great job. Plus how nice it was to see a meeting that ended in like, what was it, 43 minutes after the long winter one. So I thought that was fantastic.
I did get a text asking if it was a coincidence.
That I wasn't here.
Correlation.
I thought the
And
same
only
thing.
because I know you so well.
I know, trust me.
Teach you that way.
When they finished, I was like, wow. But this time maybe quick too. Do we have any changes or modifications to the minutes? If there were none, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. We have the approval of the minutes. Tonight, we're fortunate we have a guest speaker. I am going to ask our interim city manager and director of planning if he would like to kind of give just a little intro.
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Chair. We have Adam Aaron with the with Eagle, Michigan Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, who is here to present to you about the Michigan Coastal Management Program and some opportunities as it relates to that. So, and not to put him on the spot, but Adam shared with me it's his first time visiting Saugatuck, so he's been kind of exploring and walking around. So give him a big warm welcome. So we have a podium there for you, Adam. Feel free to, and then we'll pull up your presentation materials for you. And
Ryan mentioned this is my first adventure out to Saugatuck. Our office is out of Lansing, but I live in the Metro Detroit area. So I love every opportunity I get to come out to the west side of Michigan, and just haven't been able to make it out to Saugatuck. But I was walking, love the downtown, love the trees, big mature trees that have been there for a while, clearly, planted, put there purposefully a while ago. I kind of grew up in a more rural area outside of Ann Arbor, so concrete jungle is not my thing. So I really love the interspersed nature with the downtown. So
nice.
All right. So my name is Adam Aaron. Thank you for having me out. So I'm with the Michigan Coastal Management Program. We are a unit within the Water Resources Division under the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. If you want to advance a slide. So we like to start our presentations with this beautiful picture of Michigan, the Great Lakes state, 3,288 linear miles of Great Lakes freshwater coastline. It's the longest freshwater coastline in the Great Lakes. Any guesses on which U.S. state has the second most Great Lakes coastline?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, 800 miles. So Michigan has 4 times as much Great Lakes coastal shoreline as Wisconsin. That's a lot of coastal natural resources to protect and preserve. And it's a very diverse coastline. We've got bluffs, we've got sandy beaches, gravel beaches, wetlands, and the like. So if you want to advance. So our program was founded in 1978. It is a state-federal partnership. Our federal partner is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, commonly known as their acronym NOAA. And it's a federal, state, local partnership structure where we get funds from from our federal partners. We match those funds 1-to-1, and then we turn around and we offer those funds out in a grant opportunity to coastal communities all around the state with a 1-to-1 match. So it's 1-to-1 match all the way down, starting with federal and ending up in the local communities. And advance a slide, please. So to that end, our mission is to protect, preserve, restore, enhance, and wisely develop the coastal natural resources on the nation's longest freshwater coastline. Advance. To accomplish that, we help to plan for growth and change in coastal communities. We protect and preserve and restore and enhance coastal ecosystems, and we build partnerships, both federal, state, and local level. Advance. So we have 5 focus areas. We have 1 staff member assigned to each focus area. So it's a lot of coverage for just 1 staff person in the state of Michigan, but we do our best. I am the community development coordinator, so my focus area typically revolves around grant projects or technical assistance that have to do with community planning and zoning. We have a coastal hazards coordinator, coastal habitat coordinator, coastal waters, and then public access. That slot is currently empty, but we will be hiring later this year. Advance, please. So under my objective, we're committed to planning and managing future growth and development, as well as protecting natural resources and recreational resources on the Great Lakes coastline. So this is an example of a recent grant project. This is East China Township. They have a DTE power plant that has been decommissioned, and that's going to open up a lot of potential public space along the St. Clair River. And so we've helped fund their riverfront redevelopment plan, which involved engaging with the community, figuring out what this space could look like once the power plant is fully decommissioned. And then if you want to advance. Coastal hazards. So under coastal hazards, we want to increase community understanding of risks. So there are risks that come with living along on a Great Lakes coastline, whether you're talking about the hazards associated with erosion, coastal flooding, dangerous currents, or these high water levels that we saw in 2019, 2020. So this is a coastal hazards project that we funded several years ago now. So St. Joseph conducted a shoreline assessment. They have a setback ordinance, and they brought in an engineering firm to reassess that established setback to kind of figure out if it's still doing what it was meant to do, if they need to make any adjustments to it. So we funded that several years ago, and that's just an example of a coastal hazards project. So coastal habitat, we're committed to protecting and preserving wetlands, beaches, dunes, et cetera, and really to enhance the resiliency of the ecosystem on the Great Lakes coast. So here, City of Bridgman, Waco Beach Dune Restoration and Stabilization, we provided funding for them to designate access staircase, native dune grass plantings. They installed some sand dune fencing as well as some sheet pile retaining walls. And that's a picture of the site there. Coastal waters. So we are committed to protecting and managing coastal waters, and typically through planning and installing nature-based solutions. So with the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, we funded a community-wide assessment to kind of pick out and explore public areas that were good sites for green infrastructure. So you can see they identified 100+ sites, and then they kind of developed 15, they kind of whittled it down to 15 site-specific green infrastructure concept plans, which we hope then they eventually implement those plans. So again, not just wanting to fund the plan, we want to be able to come back and fund the implementation of the plan. In this case, you know, if whatever happens to fall in our boundary that we can fund, we would like to fund those site-specific green infrastructure projects. Finally, the last focus area is public access. And so we are committed to the creation and enhancement of public access to the Great Lakes and to foster appreciation of the natural and coastal and historical resources on the Great Lakes. And we have funded the St. Clair Wetland Interpretive Boardwalk, which involves educational interpretive signage, low impact development techniques. And we have also funded, advance please, lighthouse work. So this particular Fort Gratiot Lighthouse, it's kind of that circular pavement there with the educational signage. So we're also funding in, I'm going to say it's South Haven, Grand Haven. I get them mixed up. So we have a fund restoration of their lighthouse. We're also going to be funding some educational exhibits that they're putting into their lighthouse. So they can reopen them to the public and offer tours. So some cool stuff going on there. All right, so nationally, NOAA, our partners, have identified community resilience as one of the most important priorities to be addressed by all coastal programs around the nation. And resilience is important. This is a picture from South Haven during the high water levels. Some big waves that, the high water levels essentially allow the waves to encroach further into the shore. I'm sure I don't have to reiterate to you all here what high water levels combined with a storm event can create. And so really this idea of resilience is being able to bounce back from something like this and not be completely devastated. And so to that end, our program has created what we call the Pathway to Resilience. And so this is the idea of beginning with education, technical assistance, moving to community planning and zoning, particularly scenario-based planning. So being able to create maps and plans based on some potential future scenarios that a community wants to be prepared for. And then based on those plans, designing and engineering some nature-based solutions, and then eventually implementing those engineering plans through several ready projects. So I just want to walk just quickly through each step on the pathway. So we start with the technical assistance and training. So we have a training workshop series called the Coastal Leadership Academy. And the purpose of these series of workshops is to create a network of informed decision makers. So we have 3 workshops. 1 we are currently offering, and 2 are kind of in the works. So the scenario-based planning we are currently offering. We've given, I think I've led about 8 at this point over the past 2 years, all around the state, from the UP to Southeast Michigan to Southwest Michigan. And this particular workshop uses the Resilient Coastal Communities Planning Guide as a foundation. We talk about scenario-based planning. We talk about some coastal hazards, and we do it in a way that I'm just not talking at people all day. So there's a lot of small group exercises. I bring maps of the community so community members can sit down and walk their facilitators through their community. So it's really not just us coming to you and sharing information. It's you sharing information with us as well, and trying to find places where we intersect and where we can fund projects that will help your community become more resilient. We have 2 more that are in the works. So the nature-based solutions to reduce coastal risks, we're anticipating maybe towards the end of 2024. This one is going to focus on nature-based solutions and green infrastructure. And then the adaptation strategies for coastal hazards is next year, further down the line. And this one's going to focus on alternatives to hardened shore protection. So this whole kind of technical training is based on these Building Coastal Resilience video series. If you haven't watched them yet, I encourage you to go to Resilient Michigan. Just Google Michigan Coastal Management Program, Resilient Michigan. It's a 6-part series that we created with Michigan Sea Grant. They're about 9-10 minutes each, so maybe about an hour altogether. And it's just a little basic primer on everything that we dive into in our training workshops. So this is the UP workshop I mentioned. This one was in Houghton. So again, like I mentioned, this is designed as kind of a flip style learning experience. So we want community members to come in, share the local knowledge that they have. We share some of the technical resources we have, and then together we come to what we call an action plan or a commitment. And we have each community that comes, they actually walk away with, will commit to pursuing this type of resilient action. So target audience includes local government staff, community planners, elected officials, and planning commission members. So let's see, I think the closest one I had here in person was up in Manistee. We had Manistee, we had the county and the city, and Traverse City came down for that one. So so 1 day in-person workshop, again, presentations, small groups, and these are kind of the 4 things that we hope attendees walk away with. So being able to identify coastal hazards, understanding and using some of the data tools. So we have a little data tools presentation, walk you through some of those and how they might help inform some planning. Being able to identify stakeholders and context for action within the community, and to identify resilient planning and zoning options that you may want to pursue or utilize. And then later this year, in Nature-Based Solutions workshop, which will be offered by Melissa Latosky. She's our Coastal Waters Coordinator. And this is just an introduction to nature-based solutions. So identifying project planning considerations and implementation resources. And then again, communities come in and will work on, this is based off of NOAA training, where they actually bring communities in, and they work on like a worksheet and create within the workshop some green infrastructure, nature-based solution ideas and projects within the actual workshop that they can take home. So it's kind of modeled after that. And, it's not quite ready yet, but my anticipation is that's kind of the basic idea of what that workshop end product will be. So again, nature-based solutions. Again, I mentioned the trees, walking through downtown, fantastic. So you got bioswales, rain gardens, again, trees to help with not only, some of the heat in the summer, but also helping to slow the flow of stormwater, coastal flooding, and whatever other hazard associated with water you might have. So finally, we have one particular piece of technical assistance we're excited about. This is our Resilient Coastal Communities Adaptation Strategies Toolkit. So we are not a regulatory unit. We are a grant-funded unit, and we are at the forefront of encouraging communities to kind of go away from some of these hardened armoring structures that have kind of been the de facto for a long time. And this idea of the technical guide is we don't want to just say, nah, you really shouldn't do that. We want to be able to present you with some feasible alternatives that you can pursue instead. So we're producing a technical guide, which is going to go into some just accessible science. It'll talk about the resilience of natural shorelines, and then provide a series of best practices. So those are actually going to be just little fact sheets. We're going to produce a couple for coastal erosion, coastal flooding, and a couple other coastal hazards, and just real simple educational fact sheets to help communities brainstorm different ideas of becoming resilient to and whatever coastal hazards are present in their community. All right, so the big reason I'm here today is to plug our financial assistance. How many of you had heard of the Michigan Coastal Program before today? All right, we got a couple. That's why I'm here, raise awareness. So we have a yearly grant funding opportunity that goes out about October. Eligible applicants include coastal communities, so local units of government, regional planning agencies, educational institutions, et cetera. And there are a couple different buckets that applications can fall in. So planning projects, whether that's waterfront redevelopment plans, master plans, we have funded several resilient master plan updates over the years. We have funded zoning ordinance review. And then besides all that, we also fund feasibility design and engineering projects, low cost construction, and then land conservation through land acquisition. Each of those buckets are going to have different maximums. So, planning projects no greater than 100,000, all the way down to land conservation through land acquisition, which is no greater than $500,000. Again, it is a 1-to-1 match. So, and match can either be cash or in kind. And then we have, so October release date, December application due date. Well, that's a long time away, but if you want to advance one slide, we now have a project interest form. So October to December goes by a lot quicker than you might think. And so we want communities to really start thinking about projects now, if you have something in mind. But we also don't want you to kind of sit down and write, commit to a whole application before you have a fully fleshed out idea. So if you have something in the back of your mind that, maybe this is something the coastal program may want to fund or may be competitive for funding, we have a project interest form on our website. I brought a couple copies with me on the table, but essentially it's just a little I think about 3-page sheet. Just put your idea down there. What is the issue that your community is experiencing? What challenges do you have in addressing it? Kind of how will your idea address these challenges? And then describe the community's and public benefits that will arise. And this will just basically give our staff a chance to establish communication with you, and we can talk. We can, every year we get applications that are like, ooh, the work they want to do is good, but they're missing like 4 or 5 things. And so if we had that communication with the applicant now and smooth that out, then, their application would have gone through a lot smoothly. So, we still work with applicants who apply and don't get funding if it's a good project. But, we want to do that before instead of after. And so that's kind of the idea behind the project interest form. And I think I have one more slide. So there's our small but mighty team. And if you want to pull up that picture that I sent, so we, as a program, operate within what we call the coastal zone boundary. And so I took the liberty of pulling up your community on Google Earth. Okay. So, and I juxtaposed our boundary on Saugatuck just to give you an idea of where the boundary is. Let's see if we can get that up. Yeah. And the reason I did this is, so the coastal zone boundary, anything that has to do with low cost construction, breaking ground, it all has to occur within our designated boundary. We don't have any flexibility to operate outside that boundary when it comes to breaking earth or funding low cost construction. So I apologize, it is a little thick, but basically this red line here is our boundary. And so Saugatuck sits pretty far into the boundary, completely within the boundary, and then expands kind of on the Kalamazoo River here for a little bit. So any construction-related projects need to happen within this boundary. Planning projects, there's more leeway because it doesn't have to necessarily sit completely within the boundary, but we do need to see some argument of this is how it's going to affect the coastal resources. So, because really we are the coastal program, so we want to fund projects that have an impact on the coast. So, yeah, that's all I have. We have just a little fact sheet with just a bite size of what kind of projects we fund on this table over here. I've got project interest forms over here, and I brought stickers. So we got 2 different kinds of Fresh Coast, Best Coast stickers. A couple of them, the more colorful ones are hot off the press. So
Great.
Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to take any questions now, or if anyone wants to talk to me, I'll be sticking around before I head back to Lansing. So.
That's great.
I have a question, if I may. You use the word resilient or resilience a lot. I mean, a lot. How would you define it? How does your program define resilient? Is it economic? It seems like it's environmental, but is it economic or what's the parameters of resilience?
Yeah, so
resilient community.
Yeah, so resilient community is it's kind of all encompassing. Yes, we as a coastal program think a lot about the resilience of your coastline, but a lot of your economy maybe has to do with your coastal natural resources, your harbors, your beaches. And so That plays a huge part in whether that's tourism, whether you have industry. So thinking of Southeast Michigan, where there's a lot of industry right on the water. We have funded quite a few waterfront redevelopment plans down there and try to, because there's a lot of hard armoring down there and just trying to kind of reorient the community to embracing their coastal resources that they have if they're limited. So resilience is, thinking about what happened in 2019, 2020, I apologize, I don't know what exactly Saugatuck experienced in those years, but helping to get communities to a place where those kind of coastal weather impacts don't completely cripple a community. So that's kind of the basic idea of resilience, is that you're not completely devastated by whatever coastal hazard. Whatever coastal
Are
hazard.
you talking about the erosion that happened with the
So,
high water?
Erosion, flooding, yeah. So,
Okay.
and helping to push communities to get to a place where they're not just hitting the panic button, where they're like, okay, we did, at least from the planning side, we did plan a little bit on what it might look like, what our community could do now to prepare for the next high water level or the next low water level. So NOAA kind of defines it as the ability of a community to respond to and adapt to natural coastal hazards. And yes, as a coastal program, again, we're thinking a lot about the coastal natural resources and all that comes with it, but also under the community development focus area, a lot of communities have developed along the coastline or have industries that are reliant on the coastline. So the economy is part of it. And so it's not just the shoreline eroding away, it's everything else that erosion is then impacting. So that's kind of what we talk about when we speak about resilience in coastal communities.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam, you had mentioned like master plans. Here in this area, we call it a tri-community master plan.
Okay.
Saugatuck, Douglas, and Saugatuck Township, all within that border, which what you were showing. A big part of our master plans have to do with preservation of our waterfronts, our rivers. Would that be something that would be, like you said, you did help fund those? Because there's a lot of costs involved in redoing.
Yeah, and we're funding a couple right now. We've got a couple on the docket that we're funding starting October 1 that had applied for last year's grant funding opportunity. When it comes to master plan updates, we like to see some, how are you beefing up the resiliency of your master plan? And I know communities are updating their master plans, and maybe you already have some budget set aside for that. Maybe our funding can help. If you're interested in exploring a coastal resilience aspect, we could help fund.
Correct.
Give you essentially extra funds to add to that master plan.
Exactly.
So,
and even, as I'm sitting here, and Holly, you probably know, like right now we have our Mount Baldhead, which is part of the state park, was being redone, and we got new stairs and things that are necessary. Would those things fit in? Obviously not for this year, but if we had projects like that would give us access to
the
waterfronts, especially if you were doing it in such a way that you were planting like maybe trees along it that were helping with erosion.
And we have funded boardwalks or other public access.
That's
stairs.
another issue we have out here.
Yeah, stairs in particular. We have funded staircases in the past, increasing that public access, like you said. I think Oscoda Beach, we funded a boardwalk. I know we talked about St. Clair River there. So those, again, fill out that project interest form. We don't have a public access coordinator right now, unfortunately, but we do have staff that would be able to talk to you about low cost, like what a what a good low cost construction application might look like, what we might need to see or will need to see, because our federal partners have requirements, and I know some government requirements for grant can be onerous, and so we're trying to help lessen the burden on local communities by establishing connection early on to kind of help guide you through some of that process.
Yeah, because as we're trying to think about things, even like this year, one of our big projects was we rezoned our waterfront.
Okay.
So it was a lot of research, a lot of legal. individual's time, and I keep thinking, wow, if we would have had a one-to-one match, we would have had extra dollars, and maybe you could have even had it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we can fund the research. We funded, the engineering shoreline assessments, like I mentioned. Anything any research or engineering to help inform resiliency within a master plan. Completely, yeah,
Have
completely
you
within the
met,
realm.
I'm sorry, have you met with the township or the city,
So-
village of Douglas?
No, I know we are working right now. We have a grant right now, Sagatuck Township.
Mhm.
They're doing some work to identify some public access sites, to either purchase or improve. But I haven't met this with Douglas yet.
Adam, I'm curious, would like a park next to a river? I'm thinking about going back to this Mount Baldhead Park. It's a park right next to the river. So would kind of the park itself be considered coastal, even if it's not like, say, the boardwalk, but kind of the grassy area?
Yeah, again,
next to
I
it?
don't know where the park is, but I would, reference, we have static maps of our boundary that you can pull up. If anyone here
Yeah.
has any GIS experience, there's a layer on the Michigan Open GIS data if you just search coastal zone boundary. And if it falls within the boundary, then
Okay.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Whole set of steps right there that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So then, for the 2025 funding, that's what you're talking about, like, we would
Yes.
start the application in October.
Right.
Find out in December if it's been approved.
Now, so.
Wait, no, December is when they're due.
December is when it closes. So
Okay.
you have from about October 1, I think, is the anticipated release, to December, might be December 13th or 20th would be when it closes. So you have within that time frame to submit an application. Typically, our review commences shortly after that. And, our review goes, we have a state level review, then it has to go to the feds. So typically applicants hear about now. So the folks who applied last year are hearing, I think, this week. So and then they are able to start project October 1 of this year. So you're applying October 1, 2024 with the anticipation that if you have a grant that's accepted, you're starting October 1, 2025. And then those typically go 12 to 15 months. So the maximum amount of time grantees get will be to December 31 of 2026.
Especially if it's projects that we're thinking they would be nice to do, but we may not have it in our budget, or, to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
We had assistance, so it's kind of like we can find out in advance. And then if you
Yep.
don't, if you don't get the funding.
And that's why I'm here. It's why, to raise awareness and get you thinking about stuff down the road. 'Cause I get, it's not a quick turnaround.
Right.
And so really,
Yeah, I can't turn
Um,
in the project we took
Yeah.
last month.
So I can think of several projects that I'm like, they're like, oh, if you would have been here like 6 months ago, if we'd have found out about this 6, 9, 12 months ago, then we totally would have applied. But so just
I appreciate you reaching out and coming in and making us aware of it.
yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks
Very
for having me
much.
out.
Say Adam's taking me down a trip down memory lane a little bit. So I can tell you the city of Grand Haven has benefited from a lot of dollars from the coastal management programs. So I used to wear a planning commissioner hat several years ago. I was just on the tail end of a resilient master plan update that we partnered with Grand Haven Township on. So we expanded and right after that, they gave us more dollars to establish a waterfront setback and study that based on the resilient master plan, which really did a great job of really mapping out different scenarios, weather events, things that the community really needed to keep in mind from a building perspective of where you're building, the types of materials that you're using, the impervious service, and all those things that kind of go into evaluating projects in coastal communities. Certainly there's been some lighthouse dollars, but right now they're funding our speaking about the power plant site, the Harbor Island site in Grand Haven. It was a previous power plant site that $120,000 master planning project that they funded half of. So yeah, a lot of dollars and projects out there. So it's good opportunity. We just gotta, kind of plan ahead, and certainly we're due for, a master plan update. And so if you want a resiliency type focus, this might be a good opportunity that we talk with Douglas and the township about, to see if we throw our hat in the ring to help with that. We're due for kind of a refresh on our zoning that could benefit from, some zoning principles related to coastal management. And then I think you're probably thinking of the erosion along, the Mount Baldhead steps, things like that maybe they could help with too, so.
Does Grand Haven have a dedicated staff person that does grant applications, grant writing, that kind of thing?
No.
Then who does that fall upon within the Grand Haven City Administration?
Yeah, it depends on the department. Sometimes it's the city manager, sometimes the assistant city manager, and sometimes it's the department head or one of their staff, that depending on the type of grant opportunity. Yep.
Thanks.
We've also had regional planning agencies help communities write grants. If your local regional planning agency has the capacity to do that. We had a real small township up in the UP that added an amendment to their master plan with coastal resiliency principles, and Central Upper Peninsula Plan Development wrote and then managed that grant on behalf of the township. So another option, we recognize that capacities can be an issue. I will say, if you do get in the door, we have funded, and you're doing a plan, you're doing an engineering, what have you, and you have an idea that we want to implement whatever is in said plan or engineering design, we can write in to the grant. If you're working through a contractor, another grant application. So essentially, if you have a grant with us, we can write into the grant agreement a task to apply for our funding again while using current grant funding. So we've had what was it, Harrison Charter? It was City of Marysville. They had a grant with us to do some planning around softening the shoreline around a kayak launch. And so they did the planning, and then in the middle of their planning grant, their contractor worked on applying for a grant to implement the low-cost construction aspect. And since they had that plan that we had funded, we were inclined to accept their second application for further implementation of that plan. So I know that doesn't help you get, in the capacity issues right out of the gate, but once you kind of get in, we do try to help communities reduce some of that grant application capacity by saying, hey, you can just use our funds essentially to apply for more of our money. So.
Great.
Awesome.
And if we fill out that the project interest forms, somebody will contact us and kind of like give us guidelines.
Yeah, so all the staff email addresses should be on that form. I'll double check, but you can fill it out. There's an online PDF you can fill out, and you can just shoot it to us as an email, and we'll get back to you, and we can start that communication.
Great. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I can set stickers, so please take.
We will definitely.
We definitely will.
Very interesting. All right. That takes us now to our public comments part of the agenda. This would be any public comments that relate to the agenda item. So if you would like to speak, please come up to the podium here in the room or raise your hand online. Give us your name, your address, and just tell us what agenda item you are actually planning to speak to. Also, on the 3 items underneath new business, each of them will have their own public hearing, and during the public hearing, there is an opportunity for public comments. Is there anyone with public comments in the room? Seeing none, do I have anyone online? Not seeing anyone. That will close out our first public comment section. Moving us on to old business, short-term rental, verbal update and discussion. I will ask planning. Representative Ryan, if you will give us an update.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. And so it's last meeting, we didn't have anything short-term rental related on your agenda. Just have a break after, a period of time and discussing, having many discussions about short-term rentals. So as you recall, a couple of meetings ago, he had quite a robust discussion related to caps as it related to residential zoning districts. And there was an ask from the Planning Commission for really some more detailed data to evaluate before kind of moving that discussion forward. So since that time, and working with our assessor, we're working with our assessor to gather a lot of data points from our assessing system to kind of help inform that discussion. We worked with the county on gathering different parcel data, then certainly data from the building department system. So our assessor was kind of in the middle of equalization and board of review time, and then there was a lot of additional data points that we didn't ask for during the McKenna transition. Then there was additional data points that Granicus, our third-party vendor that we're asking or having assist us with enforcement efforts. So took some time. And we ended up with 2 separate spreadsheets that we couldn't quite get the mesh well, but we got it narrowed down to 2 that we think, for input into a GIS system was going to work. So that took some time to work through. And so now Dave, Jurassic is using that information and working with actually some folks from Williams and Works to map everything out and test the data and that sort of thing. So just taking some more time than we expected. So I apologize for that. Dave's indicated to me that, some of the initial data should be ready by the end of this month. And then, as the conversation progresses, we'll be able to kind of dive in even more. So I wanted to at least provide you with an update on, because a lot of work occurred with the short-term rental task force, work on your part, work on the city council's part to kind of update our ordinances, create a short-term rental licensing ordinance, update your noise ordinance, your zoning ordinance. I wanted to kind of tell you where we're at with implementing the task force plan. So since the city council passed and approved the ordinances, we developed a short-term rental enforcement plan, which really, I think, hit all of the recommendations of the task force and brought that to the city council, and city council approved the short-term rental enforcement plan. Staff evaluated and brought to the council updated fee schedules to establish fees for short-term rentals, violation fine amounts. We updated fine amounts for noise violations and zoning violations, which the city council approved. And carrying out that short-term rental enforcement plan, one of the components of it was using a third-party vendor to kind of help us with enforcement. And we put out a request for proposals and got our proposals back, and the city council approved going with Granicus, who is helping us with a couple of different modules. One is address identification, where it essentially scours numerous websites, looks for short-term rental related data on the internet, and then compares it to what we have as far as who's licensed and properly registered, and then is able to kind of show whether or not somebody's compliant or not. And then if they're not, provide us evidence on why they believe they're short-term renting. And so it's a good evidence gathering tool, but also compliance tool. So they are, I think, pretty close to being done with the address identification module. It kind of took a lot of, again, cross-referencing data, cleaning up a lot of data to make sure that it's accurate. So they've indicated that they're close on that, and they'll be providing training to some of us at City Hall, as well as David Jurassic, our consulting planner, and then one of his colleagues that's actually going to be helping us with some of the short-term rental enforcement that we're going to use on a contractual basis. After that phase is done, then they're going to start the phase of kind of starting to set up the 1-800 number system where folks will be able to call into a 1-800 number or text or email concerns that they have about a particular rental. And then that 1-800 number will be available 24/7 to contact the person who is responsible for the short-term rental unit to address the particular issue. Along those lines, our deputy clerk, she's been helping as well, and she had a project put on her lap too. I wanted to make sure that the information that we had in our building department system, the contact information for owners and responsible parties was updated accurately. Some of the applications were from, a couple of years ago. Some of them was information that I probably missed even inputting data and so like, let's make sure that we have good, accurate data so that way when we provide it to Granicus for their 1-800 number system, that it's good to go, as well as kind of that public registry that we're going to, that be putting out there. I wanted to make sure that we had good contact information, at least from what was reported to us. So working through that, I think we're pretty close on that, right?
3/4 of the.
Okay. So So getting there on that, I've met with the fire department and reviewed the new ordinance and the requirements. And we created a new short-term rental license application based on the actual new ordinance. It took some time and worked with the fire department to review that, make sure that, we're gathering what they need. Had legal take a look at it. So that's been rolled out. And we've had a number of short-term rental license applications, and they're being sent to the fire department and kind of going through that process. And in fact, we've had short-term rental licenses that have already been issued at this point that are now on the annual yearly process. We created a good neighbor guide. So you can go to the forms part of the website. So this was, something that, again, a recommendation. Well, let me back up a little bit. Eventually we'll get to the point where we'll have a separate short-term rental section of our website with frequently asked questions and all the information that somebody wants to know. If I was doing one job, I probably would have had it done by now. Unfortunately, I've not been able to just sit down and focus on the time that it needs to help build this out and give it to our clerk to build it out. So in the meantime, we kind of have a small section on our website to at least get us what we need up front. So if you scroll down, Sarah, so we kind of have a section with the short-term rental application. It has the licensing ordinance there, the noise ordinance that they're required to have, and then the good neighbor guide is there as well. So if you click on the good neighbor guide, just to kind of show the planning commission what came up with for that. So one pager, tried to make it simple, straightforward, something that somebody, may have an interest in reading if you're coming to the community and renting it. Trying to be welcome, but also strike the right balance of, hey, this is a community and we want to kind of, want people to be respectful while they're visiting. So try to include, good, photos of the area. Hey, again, we're glad you're here, but let's kind of respect noise and just kind of give them some basic good highlights of information. So I taken a look at a number of other good neighbor guides like South Haven, East Bay, Charter Township, and some others that can then kind of the things that I didn't like from some of theirs for some inspiration. I thought some of them actually were just way too long, way too many words. And like, if I'm vacationing somewhere, I'm not going to read a whole pamphlet. That's just not going to happen. Right. So, will somebody, hopefully this has more of it, with pictures on it, something somebody might at least want to, pick up and take a quick look at and add some good reminders. Right. So we can adjust as we go and then see how it goes. And at the bottom, it kind of has a little bit of information to certainly call 911 if there's an emergency, or if you have questions, contact your local agent. But we put the Saugatuck.com, the Saugatuck Douglas CVB's website on there. So, hey, we want to provide good information about the area too. So, so we created that. One of the recommendations from the task force was to review no parking on one side of the street for emergency vehicle access. So our engineer had actually kind of started some of that work back in the fall. Turned that over to the fire department, our Department of Public Works, to kind of take a look at the engineer's comments. We reviewed that with City Council probably about a month ago now. There's some follow-up that I needed to do and research I needed to do. I think I have everything ready to go for a City Council vote on May 29th on whether or not to implement no parking on certain narrower streets, particularly on the Hill.
Hooray.
Hooray, okay. Working on scheduling a meeting with the Sheriff's Office to review the new ordinance and kind of discuss, obviously the community's concerns over the last year and how to best approach things this summer. So once we have Granicus set up, David Jurasik and I will be meeting with his code enforcement colleague to kind of start rolling that out, start handing some of the code enforcement related concerns off to him to follow up on at times throughout the week. And then we'll be creating a separate short-term rental page on the website. So I wanted to at least provide you with work is being done. It takes some time to roll out a new ordinance. We're going to have to adjust as we go and see how certain things go, but we are working on it. I assure you. So any questions?
Great. No, it's fantastic. And I think it really is a lot for some of the people who said that, wasn't moving fast enough. There's a lot of work that's getting done after the ordinance got passed. So I appreciate that. And I think, from talking in our prior meetings and many of you individually, probably about the only thing that's really, was left out from the short-term rental task force when they recommended to the council and planning was to, look at whether or not we should impose any type of limits on it. And that's really where our discussions, had been in the past. I know that's what the data you're trying to bring forth. The one thing that I had emailed you earlier today. If we do get the data with the maps and the GIS to where we can kind of see it, instead of putting it on like our June agenda, I would like at least kind of hear if everyone in the room is open to the possibility we'd have a special meeting. I feel at a special meeting, we could actually just focus only on the short-term rental topic and try to address, do we move forward? If we do move forward with any type of recommendation, what's going to be the structure of it? And not try to put it on the June meeting where we may have other things on the agenda. Thoughts on that? And again, we don't have dates. If you're saying by the end of the month, I was looking, I get like June 4th, June 5th was kind of in that window where I didn't see other things on the current calendar, because we got to be very aware of the calendar that's outstanding. We got to check with staff whether or not they'd be able. I was thinking if we were to have something like that, we would want to start it like at 5:30 or 6, maybe a little earlier, so that it would give the opportunity, for not to go so late, for staff when you're adding a special meeting. And you don't have to give us an answer now, but would that be something you'd be open to?
Yes.
Open to, absolutely. Mark and she.
Why are we starting it earlier? I like the idea of a special meeting. I'm just a little confused why you suggested 5:30 or 6.
Starting it earlier, one for staff purposes, because they have to stay over. It's overtime, for them.
Okay. You
So
did say that. I didn't understand.
if we wait till like 7 o'clock, then you've already, incurred a couple of hours, for them. So thinking of that, also thinking that by 7 o'clock, I'm assuming we've heard from the community, in great detail, those in favor of, imposing any type of limits and those opposed to it. Even though it's probably the same comments, I'm anticipating we'll probably have a number of people that if we are doing a special meeting, that will once again have to come in. So knowing if you started at 7 many times, by the time you actually get down to any type of discussion amongst ourselves or looking at the data, it starts getting later. And so that's what's the purpose of the 5:30 or 6.
I see.
But definitely wanted, at one point we were saying if we started even earlier, like some of the task force meetings where they started like at 4, but I don't want the community to think that we're trying to do it when people are working and wouldn't be able, to attend. So I want it late enough that it gives everybody in the community the opportunity, if they would like to participate or, listen to it on Zoom. So that's just a possibility. So just so everybody's kind of aware. And again, that's kind of on the assumption as we're getting information from Dave. Obviously, if it turns out that we don't get it good information for us to start discussing until, like the 16th of June, then we'll just end up having it, on ours. But if we could, I'd like us to try to keep this moving.
I'm all for that.
Okay. That concludes old business, which now takes us on to our 3 items in new business.
I'm sorry, but back to if I may.
Sure.
The format you're thinking about, let's say we have a special meeting, it would be a study session? Would it be more of a public forum, public hearing? I see a lot of people either on Zoom or sitting in the audience potentially.
It's are we gonna do a cap or not? And if so, what?
Right. I think it really kind of comes down, we'll get down to.
I understand what we're going to be talking about,
Right.
but whether it's going to simply
Public
be.
comment.
No, it's not it's a public meeting only because it will be a special planning commission meeting. So we have to have a public comment section before we get to the new business, which the new business that night.
So we'll be following the format of our usual meetings. I'm
exactly.
sorry,
Yep.
I misunderstood that's what, okay, got it.
Right, because instead of it being on the June agenda, where it may be the second or third item on
Right.
the agenda, would be just to have a special one.
Following the format of our usual meetings.
Right.
Thank you.
And also because I think when we were talking about this earlier and when we were discussing it with council, from a timing standpoint, if we waited until the June meeting to discuss it, and then you have any type of recommendation, if we were as a group were wanting to make any recommendation, then it would have to go to, Jake and his team to kind of like give us a draft that we would then review, not until our July meeting. And then if you review that, by the time you would actually have a recommendation to council, you're into August, September, timeframe. So it was just the possibility of trying to see if we were going to be moving forward, having it so that we could move things up maybe by a month or so, knowing that we also in the fall will start to have elections and different things going on. Does that make sense, Ryan? Am I
Yeah,
missing
no,
anything?
I see. Yep. I will let you know if, well, I checked with Dave on your email today and I'll let you know, yeah, when we get data and he's like, yeah, I'm good. If you want to schedule a special meeting, we can do it. And
Perfect. And also we'll know more what's on our June agenda. I mean, that makes a difference too.
yes, yep.
Okay. Now moving on to the new business. The first item is the Culver Street for a restaurant and outdoor seating and expanded dining area. This will be a public hearing. So I can't see the time, but call to order the public hearing for 322 Culver. And I'll ask our zoning administrator if they'll give us a little summary of this application. And then we will ask for a presentation by the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request from El Burrito Feliz for Planning Commission approval of an expanded outdoor dining area, both on the sidewalk and the streets. Interestingly, with this particular property several years ago, actually obtained zoning approval for 3 separate restaurants to have sidewalk seating. In this case, there's an expansion of the seating into the street, which certainly triggers a new special land use review and site plan review in this particular case. So they've had outdoor dining for the last few seasons under kind of the temporary approvals when we were in the COVID years. So now they're asking for your more kind of permanent zoning approval. Very similar to past years. Like I said, dining on the sidewalk and the street. I know in the past few years, there's been some concerns that were raised related to umbrellas being used in the tables in the street and how that impacted the clear vision at the corners. While they could see stop signs as they're approaching, they've indicated that they're not going to use the umbrellas at this point. So that's not going to be a particular concern. So the applicant is here this evening to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. We'll ask the applicant. Please come forward.
My name is Jonathan Torres, representation of 322 Culver.
Nice.
So is there any questions or concerns you still have? I can probably answer.
Is there any changes from what you've had previously?
Not really. We pretty much keeping the same plan review we've been having for the past 2 seasons. So we're planning on keeping the same. But the umbrellas, that's the only thing we're just gonna get rid of, since it was mentioned that it was kind of becoming not very appropriate, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And you've found them obviously beneficial to you.
I'm sorry.
You found it beneficial to your business.
Yes. A lot more, definitely. I mean, it's a seasonal town, so a lot of the visitors, they'd rather be sitting outside than being out indoors, especially because in front of the building, you have the bay. So they just enjoy being outdoors. And if we got more tables, I mean, that's more customers and it helps a lot. So.
Any questions? I mean, it's pretty straightforward in a lot of ways.
Quick question, if I may. Your information and diagram shows 5 tables in what you're calling the pop-up patio area. Is that the increase, decrease, same number as from last year?
It will be exactly the same. 5 tables. Yep.
Okay.
Even if we try to put more, I don't think we can fit more.
Any other questions? No, then we'll thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate for being here. Doesn't matter. Moves on to public comments. If you would like to come up to the podium and have any comment in regards to this applicant, please do so. If you're online, just raise your hand. We have no one in the room wishing to comment. I don't see anyone online, so that would close out the public comment portion. Commission deliberation.
Seems
I think
really
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say, to me, I think it's kind of like some of the ones
Ones
last
they've done
month.
before, they were one of the first ones being out there, always
Exactly.
do a good job.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think if you go through, like in our packet, you know, all the checklist,
Mhm.
you're right, can attest to, it looks like they've met all the requirements. I know on page 19 and 20 in our kits is kind of, the recommendation from
Yep.
Our administrator, which I would have to say seems to be very reasonable.
Yeah.
They have great food. And they have great food, and we appreciate the business. Well,
Are we ready for motion?
I would say if there's no more deliberation. then we'll-
Okay. I recommend approval of a special land use and site plan request for expanded outdoor dining contingent upon the following. 1, demonstrate the compliant placement of electrical cords. 2, provide information concerning the type and placement of barrier reflectors. 3, secure all other applicable approvals from city departments, the fire department, and applicable outside agencies. And 4, provide all expanded outdoor dining area checklist items in accordance with section 154.0 or 092 parentheses O parentheses 2B, license agreement fees, certificate of insurance, not expired MLCC license, lighting attestation, and tax attestation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and it's seconded. We will then ask for roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Broker,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Gaunt,
Yes.
Lachey,
Yes.
and Mann.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. That moves us on to item B, which is the 201 Culver Street. Trying to find where it starts on our packet.
Let's take a look.
51.
What's that?
Page 51.
I'm beginning. Okay, thank you. So on this one, I will call the public hearing for 201 Culver Street for a restaurant, outdoor seating, and expanded dining area, and we'll ask our zoning administrator to give us a brief summary for this project.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Very similar to the last request. New Holland Brewing Company at 201 Culver Street requesting approval of an expanded outdoor dining area in the streets. They've had it for the past at least a couple seasons during our COVID years. No particular concerns or issues. I know that they are here to answer any questions that you have here tonight as well.
Very good. Thank you. Forward.
Chad Kuntz with New Holland. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Chad.
Any questions or concerns that I can address for you?
Once again, is it the same as what you've done
Yes.
previously? So,
Kuntz, Kuntz.
no, it's probably once again, from my standpoint, I think it's pretty straightforward. You did a nice job with the application.
That was my boss that did that for me. I'm stepping in on the public speaking side and she gets to do the paperwork. So
Very good. Yeah, I think we all enjoy.
We really appreciate that actually, when we can actually read them.
you wouldn't be able to read it if I was the one doing it. So
But no, it seems like it's exactly the same as what you've done in the past. Seems like it works very well. It's been very secure and very safe.
yes.
I'm not aware of any issues in the last several years. Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Very good. So thank you for
Thank you very
being
much.
here. At this time, then we would open up public comments for this application. If you're in the room, once again, please come up to the podium. Name and address or raise your hand online. Having none in the room, I don't believe we have any online. We will close public comment and we'll have commission deliberation. Let's make sure straightforward. Seems
Yeah.
pretty straightforward to me. I would agree. There's no additional deliberation, we can go to a motion, and if anyone would like, recommendations were made if you want to follow those on page 60 in our kit.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the special land use and site plan request for expanded outdoor dining submitted by New Holland of 201 Culver Street, contingent upon the following: secure all other applicable approvals from city departments, the fire department, and applicable outside agencies. And 2, provide all expanded, I love the background music. Provide all expanded outdoor dining area checklist items in accordance with section 154.092 parens O paren N paren 2 and paren B. License agreements, fees, non-expired MLCC license, non-expired food licenses.
Second?
We have a motion. We now have a second. Then ask for the roll call and vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Broker?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Gallant?
Yes.
Lachey?
Yes.
And Mans?
Yes. Very good. Thank you for coming in. Good luck to you this summer.
Thank
Yeah, thank you.
Next closes out the public hearing for 201. Next item on our agenda will be a public hearing for 350 Mason Street. It is signage for a bed and breakfast.
Yep,
So at this time,
and Mr. Chair, just before you gavel in, this one actually will just be a planning commission review, not a public hearing for this one.
oh,
Yep.
well, I'm sorry, it does say that.
Yep. So it's all good.
Just like in this whole like.
All good.
That's right.
Yep. So,
They like a public hearing?
so.
Kidding.
Very good. Apologize there. All right, so moving on to 350 Mason, I'll ask the zoning administrator to kind of give us a summary and a little bit of background. Why it's
Mr.
before
Chair.
us.
Yeah, certainly. So, new bed and breakfast is being, well, actually, it's, I think, done being constructed. They've asked for their final inspections at 350 Mason Street. Was a project that is in your CER district, Center Residential R4 zoning district. That's actually is a permitted use. So it didn't require a prior review by you, but there's an interesting provision of your zoning ordinance that requires essentially a bed and breakfast can have an attached sign, but if it's a freestanding sign, it states that planning commission approval is required. So in this case, they would like a freestanding sign, and that it's submitted an application to do just that. From staff and consultant perspective, there aren't any concerns with the placement of the sign, size of the sign. But it's ultimately subject to your review. Mark Lodenstein, the applicant, is on Zoom tonight if you have any questions for him.
Any thoughts or questions that we have a chance to go through?
Like
No?
a nice sign.
Look like a nice sign. This is one of those where sometimes when I saw it come up, I had to ask myself, why did they have to come before? I know it's in our zoning, but it's part of as we're doing our zoning updates. I'm like, but it is in there. It looks like a nice sign. I think it meets all the requirement.
There's just a discrepancy. I see over in the specifications, that has to be a typo where the actual rendering is probably the right sizes because it calls out a 3-inch square aluminum post with 6mm graphic sign. Are the posts 3 inches and what's the 6mm sign? I just don't understand the specification over there.
Oh, yeah, and your overall size on the.
Something's not right over there, but the sign, I think the dimensions shown in the rendering look correct.
Yes. Yep.
The dimensions would be correct on the drawing.
And what is the actual sign composed of? Is that aluminum also?
Yes. Yeah. It's
Thank
wood post and an aluminum sign.
Oh, wood posts.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, this is square post.
It says.
Does it have to go to historic? No.
No, actually, this property is not in the historic district. You would think that side of Mason is, but it doesn't run that far east.
The
And it meets all the requirements for where it's placed, from what I could see in your write-up, Brian.
I don't know if it matters or not, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, but it says that the posts are aluminum, not wood.
That's what you just stated, though, that's a typo. They're wood with aluminum sign and the dimensions in the drawing are correct. Specification's wrong.
Okay. Right.
I don't have any issues myself with it.
I don't
Anyone
either.
else?
No.
Oh,
And
Do we need a motion authorizing this?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
so there, page 85 is a recommendation that we can place into motion if someone would like to.
I would like to, oh, wait,
I think it's just a recommendation.
make a
for the
motion
approval.
to approve the freestanding sign for porches on Mason. Is that good enough?
Yep.
Second.
We'll ask for a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Broker,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Swanton,
Yes.
Lache,
Yes.
and Manning.
Yes. So the porches on Mason sign has been approved. We thank them for putting this all together for our review. That moves us on to communications, which I wasn't aware of any. Ryan, Sarah, I don't think there was any received by you. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Report of officers and committees included in the package. There was the zoning administrator as well as the city interim city manager report, which again, I find extremely useful and very,
Than the police blotter and the old.
I mean, there's no question that the wearing two hats, that's not a one, you're doing it extremely well and you're still keeping everybody informed of everything that you're doing, which is a lot. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
is there anything in it that you wanted to point out specifics for us?
No, not in particular. I think we at least covered kind of the short-term rental updates tonight. That was what I wanted to cover, but happy to answer any questions you have.
The one, regarding with the short-term rental, through this, I've been trying to keep track. Are you keeping track as to how many are new short-term rental applications versus existing and renewals?
Yeah, so I do note that on the log, and I have gone through, I don't know, it was like a couple of months ago when I think you made your recommendation
Right.
related to the moratorium, and the planning and the city council asked me for that information and I provided. So it's being tracked. I haven't looked at the numbers in a while.
Right.
So, yeah.
But I mean, it's just like if we were doing a meeting, so I wanted to say how many we had since January or since March.
Yep.
We'd be able, okay,
Certainly.
perfect. No, I think it's very thorough, very good.
Since we got a little time, I'm interested in the answer to the boat slip needing an STR license. You said answered question. I'm just, what do our ordinance say for that?
The short answer is if it's a truly traditional boat, then no, it does not require a short-term rental license.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, that will move us to the second and last public comment. And this can be on any item, does not have to relate to tonight's meeting or tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak, you come up to the microphone, give us your name and address. And if you're online, just please raise your hand.
Diana Decker, 128 Elizabeth. Thank you so much for the rental task force and the planning commission with all the many months and hard work regarding the rental, the short-term rental. My recommendation is regarding also the application, when it's a local agent and if it's a property management company, they need to be associate brokers or brokers. And those license numbers would start with 6506. So if the city is approving any application like that with a property management company, not approving that with that type of number starting with that associate broker's license, they're in violation. So I just wanted to hopefully somehow that can be a recommendation somewhere in the future where the city of Sawchuck's not approving someone who's not legal in the state of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing none in the room, seeing none online, we will close out public comment, which will lead us to commissioners' comments. Anything, CJ?
No, not today.
Not tonight? Mark?
Yeah, I'll make hopefully a quick comment. On one of the local forums, there was yet again somebody who took to task us, not by name because they wouldn't, but about the waterfront preservation ordinance. And all the how bad it was and all the holes in it, and it was going to do exactly the opposite of preservation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would just like to say that as far as I know, the person who made the comment didn't show up to a single meeting, has no idea basically what that person is talking about. And I just see it as a general thing that's quite unfortunate of when we and the city council and our city staff take a lot of time, put in a lot of effort, reach out to the community in every way we possibly know how, and enact something that is actually progressive in terms of, with a small p, not a capital P, in terms of moving the community forward in exactly the way the community would like us to do in terms of goals. And yet you have people who spitball comments of negativity without well, I know how you stand on my comment.
She's gonna put it out there.
Spitball comments of negativity without a basis on fact or any other rational basis. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mark.
No, and thank you for putting it into the public comment, because we do hear it and it is hard sometimes, not to want to go out and react immediately, especially when someone's looking at it. And then I heard the same thing about, oh, it just allows for full development. And if anyone looks, they can see that we required more setbacks than what was previous. You have less lot coverage than what was previous. You put height restrictions in than what was previous. So if anything, it truly is preserving the access to the waterfront. And I don't know how that can happen where somebody misinterprets it, but thank you for that comment.
And if I can just say also, and what's interesting is the administrator of that forum came after me rather than the person doing the misinformation, and the person who did the misinformation didn't respond at all. So it's a crazy little town sometimes.
Yes. Thank you to Ryan and Dave Drossik and Sarah and all of the people who are doing so much work on the short-term rental. It's really, we got a lot done, and making it, actually putting it into practice is the hard part. And so thank you for your diligence and attention to detail. It's very exciting. So I appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo Holly's comments. I mean, it's impressive, the work that you've done and that you continue to do along with the staff. And makes me proud to sit up here knowing that, you guys doing the work you do makes us all look good. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing to add, but agree with all the prior comments that have been made.
You're here. And I'll just say I apologize for my phone.
We noted that during.
And I've gone from Apple to Android to Google now. So the transition has been like over the last 3 days, and it's been quite challenging. Obviously, I don't know how to turn the ringtone off. Anyway.
Very good. But no, I would reiterate all the comments that have been made here as far as, especially to the staff and the job that, again, that Ryan is doing, wearing 2 hats. And also want to congratulate him on being one of the finalists for the city manager position. I'm sure we all saw the emails that came out regarding that. And then even to Mark's point, I continue to hear when we talk about the whole short-term rental and the fact that you are going forward with the work. I many people saying that, okay, you passed the ordinance, why are you continuing to have it on your agenda? There was no, you're acting on your own. No one asked you to do this. And I just, every time, keep going back and reminding, if anyone reads through the short-term rental task force, it was very clear at the end that they had asked for the planning commission and city council to continue to review the topics that weren't fully covered, like the caps, where there wasn't a full resolution from the task force. And that's all we're doing, is just trying to finish work that I think that we started 18 months ago that has led us to these new ordinances that we're now implementing, which are all positive. And obviously what we want to try to do is make certain we look at all the aspects. And if there's anything else that we want to implement, that it would have a positive impact on the community overall, basically from the livability as well as the profitability for our businesses and citizens. And with that.
Could I just add something?
Sure.
You reminded me of something. So I've attended over the past couple of weeks, workshop meetings, city council meetings, and they're sort of to Mark's point and the points that Steve was just making. Those who complain but never bother to show up and create, as a result, a ton of anxiety as well as work on the part of staff and city council. As I said in my last public comment, that basically show up, you have a voice, and everybody respects voices. We want to hear those voices. Absolutely. But if you don't show up and speak out, to behave in the way that has been described around this table tonight isn't fair. And the other thing is, and I said this respectfully to council, in terms of ordinances, which we deal with all the time here on planning, is that when it comes to ordinances, they're there, and our obligation is to either enforce them or change them. So the amount of criticism that's happened recently in terms of actions that the city's taken on behalf of the community, just like the work that we've done, all to benefit the community, and that's consistent with the master plan. So I just wanted to thank you again for your patience and your doggedness in terms of continuing to do the work, and to my colleagues also. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that, we do have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
You get the easy one.
I didn't have to read it.
Exactly. Got that one memorized.